the whole thing about like we have to destroy the gender binary and all this other stuff. It's all about rebelling against societal norms.
Right.
But unlike the people that used to rebel against societal norms, the whole gender thing is like, oh, we're going to rebel against societal norms, but society better fucking accept us and better make us normative.
Yes.
At the same time.
Yes.
It's very weird. Yeah.
The thing that is a little irksome to me as someone who obviously leans left is that I thought that we were trying to marginalize the idea of gender roles that were tied to sex.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden gender roles have been almost put on a pedestal by this movement.
And Addison, many people think gender pronouns are exclusive to the LGBTQ plus community, but that's a misconception. True?
Yeah. Well, everybody has pronouns.
How do you not see that Dr. Phil is totally walking on eggshells there?
He's just reading, like he doesn't know any of it. He's like LGBTQ
I know.
plus community. Like he's struggling.
It's like you may use he and him as your pronouns, right? I use they and them as my pronouns. We all may have a certain gender pronoun too, but I think it's important for people to understand that for trans and non-binary people, we often change our pronouns to reflect who we are when we come out and be who we are.
See, now the problem that I have with this is that in society, most people look like their gender pronouns. So there's no need to announce what your gender pronoun is because it's obvious. It's almost like redundant to announce for Dr. Phil to announce my gender pronoun is he, him. I mean, I don't recall Dr. Phil coming out and telling they I'm trying here. Telling non-binary Jesus that that his pronouns were he, him. She just kind of assumed his pronouns, didn't she? Oh my God, right. What happened here?
Dr. Phil should have just been like, did you just assume my gender?
I know, exactly. So the conflict is people that want to make their gender pronouns very different than what you would assume their gender pronouns are, which it creates a conflict. It does create a conflict.
And yeah, not just different, but who want to make both their gender and their gender pronouns ambiguous intentionally.
Right. Yes.
And to me, that's not like, if you want to do that, then, you know, go, if you want to make your gender ambiguous, I don't care. Go do it.
Yeah, do it.
But don't pretend like it's some deep, like don't pretend like this is some deep truth about yourself. Okay. It's like, no. You just, for whatever reason, are, I don't want to use the word getting off because that's like sexual, but you're drawing some kind of benefit or pleasure to yourself on confusing people and breaking the boundaries of gender.
Right.
Which, if you want to go do that, go fucking do that. I don't care. I mean, Jordan Peterson talked about this with Ben Shapiro, saying many famous people, you know, are well known for, you know, pushing the boundaries of gender. Many famous musicians. Right, David Bowie. Boy George, right.
But even Rolling Stones.
Right, Rolling Stones. But, and I don't have a problem with that, but just don't act like you're like a fucking hero, or like you have to be, that everyone has to bow down to your whim or respect this decision you're making. Because I would say that saying that this kind of attitude, it's the same thing as deciding to dress up like a goth person every day. It's like, okay, that's your interest and that's fine. I don't care, but I shouldn't have to like call you something different just because your interest is, you know, to dress like a goth person or to dress like a punk rock person or to dress as, you know, gender ambiguous. Like, go do it, but so what? You know, don't try to change my behavior or the world to align with your interests.
Yeah, this is why this movement is so much different than like the punk rock movement or the goth movement, because this movement at its heart is authoritarian, because they want you to accept them like formally. The punk rock movement wasn't looking for the approval of fucking mainstream society. They were opting out of mainstream society. They were saying, fuck you, mainstream society. We don't want anything to do with you. Okay? Well, we don't want your approval. We don't need your approval. Fuck off.
And that's an interesting hypocrisy, too, is that the whole thing about like we have to destroy the gender binary and all this other stuff, it's all about rebelling against societal norms.
Right.
But unlike the people that used to rebel against societal norms, the whole gender thing is like, oh, we're going to rebel against societal norms, but society better fucking accept us and better make us normative.
Yes.
At the same time.
Yes.
It's very weird. Yeah.
That's authoritarian. How is that not completely authoritarian?
And it's also not cool, because the thing that made Boy George or Rolling Stones or, David Bowie cool was that they were rebelling, not that they were rebelling in order to be, mainstream.
Yeah. This is not cool. This is so far from cool.
Lame.
How do you explain the difference between sex and gender?
I consider sex to be our biological makeup. Our chromosomes or hormones, our genitals is a biological makeup. But our gender is more of an internal sense. So think of it like this. Sex is what's between the legs, and gender is what's between the ears, right? It's how we see ourselves.
Lie, but anyway.
Well, I'm fine with that being true, but the problem is what's between your ears is your brain.
Yeah.
And your brain is heavily influenced by biology.
Yeah, which is completely gendered, yeah.
Right. So it's like,
to
okay,
the point
that's
where
fine,
men
but,
and women, a man and a woman can have the same exact stroke if it's localized in the right hemisphere and have completely different outcomes.
Right. Sure.
It's hugely different. Yeah. So anyway.
I mean, if they can create algorithms that will look at a bunch of brain scans and will with 95% accuracies determine whether it's a male or female.
Yes. Yeah.
So obviously there's differences. This is preposterous.
But the idea that we as human beings create an identity, that's this would be the paradigm of authenticity, where we're looking for some like internal idea of what our identity is that we're going to project to the world. Like if you want to say that's what gender is, okay, I accept that. But when you want to say between the ears, we're talking about the brain.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, we're getting into the whole the debate about identity is one that completely fascinates me, because I'm not necessarily sure that it comes solely down to you as an individual. I think identity is a game that we play with the people around us, our family, our society, our media. Like there are all these different things that affect our identity that you can't really separate. So just the idea that our identity is something that comes solely from within is a very controversial statement.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. It's preposterous because just on its face, because even the parts of you that your identity that come from within are created via how you perceive the outside world.
Right.
If you lived alone on an island, your identity of yourself would be vastly different than, when you're living around other people and you're judging because you always judge yourself based on other people and what's happening around you.
Yeah.
People are not walking around in vacuums here saying, well, this is what I feel like.
You could find yourself in a homosexual relationship with a volleyball if you were all alone on a desert island, right?
That's right. That's right. Hey, Reed Nice Wonders in the chat.
What's up, Reed?
Reed says, classic blank slate evolution stops at the neck idea. True. Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah. But these people don't buy into evolution. No. So
on the inside.
Okay. And that's something somebody can't know. Gender is something somebody can't know just by looking at somebody.
Nope. Yeah. Because everyone is going to present and express themselves in a different way. I know it's very confusing, right? Everyone's like, what is going on? But it's really, about us breaking that assumption that we can tell someone's identity, someone's story, their pronouns, even their name just based on how they look, right?
See, it's just so weird because it's like so many people just, I mean, don't really put much time and energy into this. So you're really structuring society to cater to such a small minority that want to do this. It's very bizarre to me.
It is. Well, it's really annoying because for most of human history, there wasn't this separated conception of sex and gender. This is a recent thing.
Correct.
And I'm totally fine with psychologists who are trying to conduct research about what is nature and what is nurture, using different terms like say, okay, the parts of you or the parts that are related to sex that are all from biology would be sex, and things that are entirely not about biology.
Yeah.
If you could even make that distinction, maybe it's impossible to make that distinction. But if you could say like, colors, there's nothing that biologically predisposes boys to like blue or girls like pink or something. If you want to label all that gender for just for clarity purposes, when you're writing psychological papers and research papers, I'm totally fine with that. But unfortunately, this concept of gender has been dumbed down into the mainstream media to mean something it shouldn't ever have meant. Like everyone's walking around with separate genders and separate sexes, which isn't true because for most people, they don't think about their gender.
Yeah, gender and sex is interchangeable for most people.
Right, exactly. And for like growing up, before all the woke stuff, I always felt like people just said gender because they didn't want to use the sex word.
Yeah.
That would say it's like, if you're in a polite company, you say gender because sex implies fucking or something. And that was about it. That was the only distinction that seemed to be made.
Yeah. Yes. There's different words for different things because, intercourse is like the nice way to say fucking.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
When you're in your doctor's office and he asks you, well, have you had intercourse? He usually doesn't say, well, have you fucked anyone recently? Right. I mean, this is the usefulness of language.
Right. Right.
So you're kind of making the same argument with gender and sex, but it's the thing that is a little irksome to me as someone who obviously leans left is that I thought that we were trying to marginalize the idea of gender roles that were tied to sex.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden gender roles have been almost put on a pedestal by this movement where, if you like cooking, well, that's a feminine gender role. I thought we were trying to get rid of that. Wait a second here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but this is where it's so crazy because the liberal conception was, we're going to classify, cooking and taking care of the kids. This is your gender role. And we're going to say, listen, if you want to cook and take care of kids as a man, that's fine. And if you want to go work as a CEO, as a woman, that's fine. And we're going to try to eliminate these kind of, or not eliminate, but say, eliminate the stigma, of saying that people are behaving outside of normative gender roles, or I guess average gender roles.
Yes.
And that was the liberal conception, and I was totally fine with that. I think most people were totally fine. I think most people here were totally fine with that. But then it's sort of when you have like the woke socialists take over, and they're like, no, fuck liberalism. We're going to draw a bunch of boundaries here. We're not going to deconstruct. We're not going to get rid of all these, boundaries. We're going to erect as many boundaries and classifications as possible so that we can claim that we're oppressed and thus use our oppression and our intersectionality to seize political power.
Yeah, that's what it's
and
really
that seems
about.
Right, and that seems to be what's going on here.
They even make this mistake. It's not one of the commentators later on says something very sexist. She says vacuuming is woman's work, basically implying that housework is woman's work.
Right, exactly.
And I thought, oh my God, what happened here? Like now you've basically become the avatar of Matt Walsh. It's like, when did vacuuming become women's work? It's like, right. That's what we were trying to get rid of.
But and to me, this really illustrates how people really don't care about their values or their principles. because you and me, we care about the principles that
Hell
we
yeah.
upheld. And that's why when the woke stuff came about, we're like, what is all this woke stuff? This is literally the opposite of the principles we've held. And I thought the left held for 20, 30 years in this country. And this is what triggered us and alerted us that something was going on.
Yeah.
And yet you see, like, most people, it's just, they're totally blind to this. Like, oh, this is the new thing. Okay. What is my team doing now? Oh, this is what the kids are doing. This is what's hip. This is what the left is now, I guess. I'm just going to go along with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's completely backwards. Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.